there. Sorry about that.
It's the lead-in.
No, I was trying to get chat up, so and I finally did. So.
What's up, Blake?
So you can read it. I'm glad you like the music. Thank you, and hello everybody.
Yeah. Hello.
There we go. So, welcome to our second update.
Hello!
Hopefully we sound a little bit better. I have a much better microphone in place. We're still single camera, single mic, but we'll fix that later. We have some plans. And unfortunately my desk is super bouncy, which is why it's all shaky cam. So, it's been a week since we last updated. Where do you want to start?
I 3D printed a D10 and a Buddha head.
These are important.
These are important.
Actually, jokes aside, the D10 of monster size is one of a pair, the other of which is being printed right now on the 3D printer.
Behind me.
And it'll be useful for us because one of the things that we did this week was decide that we're going to use a 2D10 based system.
Correct.
Which means every roll will be,
right,
2 of those, right?
One will be a 10, one will be the other.
Right, which is why the other one is red and this one's green, so that we always have a signifier of which is which. It's incredibly light because it's hollow.
Yeah, I
the
printed it hollow.
Actually seems to be just about perfect. I feel like I see 4s more often than other numbers, but in actually keeping track of the numbers, I think I've only seen like 2 more 4s than other numbers, so I think I'm well within the margin of error. So I think they actually work just fine. Which I have to admit kind of surprised me because there's some rough edges on there that you would think would have an effect, but they don't seem to.
No, it seems to roll all right. It's kind of cool. But yeah, so we made the decision this week that we're going to D10 for a D100 based system.
In fact, let me pull up Discord really quick here, and I can read you everything that we decided. So, basically what happened is that Chris and myself had to sit down over lunch on Friday to discuss, the constraints of the pen and paper system.
Right.
Because we know that we want to bring over the mechanics of the Meow, but we don't necessarily want to bring... I'm further from the mic, I bet.
Yeah.
In fact, that probably makes it a little bit better. Anyway, so we wanted to bring over the dynamics from the Meow, but we knew that a lot of the actual literal mechanics that create those dynamics probably wouldn't work. I mean, there was a lot of computation going on in the background, right?
Indeed.
Often using very large numbers that dice don't particularly model well. So we knew that we had to figure out what made the PNP, like what made it the tabletop system. And so we came up with this list of sort of guidelines. There's still some open questions, but here they are. First and foremost, yes, absolutely, we should totally do that, like custom dice. Do you see that?
Yeah, that'd be sick.
All right, so first and foremost, the game is going to be levelless. The tabletop game will not have levels. Instead, it will be skill point based.
Point builds.
GURPS is an example of a system that works this way.
I think champions as well.
Yeah, champions. I think the hero system does also. I may be wrong about that. It's been a while since I played hero.
Yeah, heroes actually. I remember making characters on that.
Yeah, exactly. So, levelless, skill based, and we kind of want skill points to be given out by the storyteller, by the DM.
Right.
But we need to figure out a good balance for that. So one of the other things that we decided was that skills should probably have, something like 10 points that they can possibly get into them. We don't want to use the thousands of point pools that we were going to use
in the Meow.
In the Meow, right.
I would like the maths to be manageable so that it's not like, oh, I forgot I haven't been adding that bonus this whole session, or if you look at my character build, the way I made this guy, he's got a +1 here and a +15 over here, but that's only when divided by 6 when you access it on the other table in Book 5. Like, I think that play moves more quickly and the stories can evolve and actually happen a lot more readily if you're not spending 10 minutes looking up where the divisor is because your guy actually has the hat of division or the whatever. It should be right, exactly. It should not be like doing your taxes. You shouldn't have to reference 15 lines on your sheet. You should just be like, hey, we need to do this thing. What's the check? There's the roll. Now you move. You know,
Exactly.
like streamline the math.
Yep. So pips. So what we have to figure out though is a way to balance, you know, the storyteller's ability to give you these dollops of points based on the stuff that you did in a session versus the number of dollops and points you can actually get. Otherwise, you end up with, you know, max strength characters very, very quickly.
Yeah, really quickly.
Right? So there's still work to be done there, but the general idea is that there'll be, you know, ticks that you gain that somehow play into the rolls that you'll be making. And again, the rolls will be 2d10, you know, plus some sort of modifier versus some target difficulty number. And that target difficulty number, we're thinking, will be mostly up to the storyteller, right? So and flexible, right? So I might need, for example, you know, to roll above a 75 to pull off some, you know, particularly epic thing, right? And so, you know, my skills plus the die roll have to somehow make it possible for me to do so, but at the same time, make it possible so that if I roll, you know, double zeros, if I roll 100 plus my bonus so that I get, I don't know, let's say 125, right, against a 75, that's a major success. And you can tell by the difference
Yeah, you need to be
between
able
the
to
target versus what you rolled. So like if I only roll a 75 or if I roll a 50 but my 25 bonus somehow just gets me in there, that should be modeled in the game as people play as well. You know, up to the storyteller and the players, of course. If you don't want to deal with it, you don't. Which is another key point. We want the game to be a collaboration between storyteller and players, and so we're going to try to build that into the mechanics wherever possible. So for example, even though it's not part of this list of constraints, we discussed how somebody might do something like tags. And we're thinking one of the ways that we might be able to do that is that the DM can apply a status effect on you and can either keep it private or not, depending on how they want the game to play out.
Right.
Right, but that's, you know, not necessarily something that would carry over if you use that character in some other players, you know, some other storytellers'
campaign, or other, right.
But for that campaign, it would be like having a tag with an attached game effect.
Correct. And then in the modules, as we produce content, we can do things like you can give the list and say if the character has this, then this other thing can happen, and we can branch the potential space of each kind of region and encounter description in the module that way, which kind of leads us to agendas, which is another thing
Absolutely.
we talked about this week, is how can we write modules and create you know, a game that's not just another skin on Pathfinder or another skin on Dungeons and Dragons or any of these other things. What is kind of unique about our system that carries over from the idea from the Meow, and one of those is agendas in general, and that plays into how we write content for the for modules, etc. In that, what's up, Zero? Because we don't have to write a module in the sort of linear authorial way that is typical of
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a railroad.
RPG. It doesn't
and in
have
fact,
to be a
we
railroad.
really don't want it to be.
Right. Because we want players to have, you know, a lot of agency as far as driving the actual story, we can do things like write the module in a way that describes the main players in this time period or time slice or region and what they're trying to do, and then what they will do given certain circumstances, and then coupled with the list of tags, that gives a lot more breadth of potential space.
Right. It does mean that the
Potentiality.
storyteller has to pay attention to what's going on in the world and sort of make sure that the various powers react to it. But I think that's relatively easy to do. I mean, we're figuring that, you know, agendas could be expressed on a single piece of paper, maybe front and back, right, with the, you know, agenda described on the front and then all of the various events that can happen based on threshold conditions on the back or something like that. Right. That way we can have multiple agendas in a campaign, right? So, you know,
we can just sell agendas. Even we can sell people. At that point we can sell a group.
Right.
And
exactly.
you can have add that group to your
broad
world.
games of Skypass.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
But yeah, in a module we can provide you with the agendas of multiple powers that be that are all somehow related. You know, so like if, you know, one of the outer gods is attempting to reincarnate on Earth or on Telson, excuse me. We could then have, you know, an agenda for that god, an agenda for the cults related to that god, an agenda for the Brogians, an agenda for the city where the ritual has to take place, right?
Right.
Like all of these can then be modeled in the game and be relatively simple
To
for the storyteller to
understand,
digest and
right.
understand, right?
But that provides a much broader space for the players then to go and work in, because if they go do something that's not, if they go off the rails, as so to speak, and go try to move things in a different way or in some way that you didn't exactly think about, you will have the knowledge you'll need as a storyteller to react to that and give them their adventure that they want. Meanwhile, the rest of this can play out in the background, and you'll know what's happening, without their influence.
Right, and because it's all based on threshold conditions, anything that the players do can feed back into this and trigger different reactions based on the agendas. So that even if your storyteller is more of a by the book sort of GM who only really wants to go by the module, it will still be collaborative and reactive to the players.
Right.
And so we think agendas are kind of a huge mechanic for that.
And a new way of doing things. It isn't just I wrote a story, broke it into choose your own adventure pages, and then your players basically pick which player, the page you turn to. Now I turn to page 34 because they're in the granary, and if they go over to the kitchen, I'll turn to page 35, and the orc will say, "Avast! I am the orc chef." And oh wait, I'm sorry guys, I read the wrong one. Avast! I am the orc apprentice chef. Yes, because instead it would be
I've played
far
that game,
more.
like you mentioned.
Far more flexible and far more natural storytelling experience.
Absolutely.
Is my hope.
Legendary Neurotoxin had a question about skills and attributes.
Oh yeah, Legendary asks, how do skills and attributes affect challenges? Each point relative to the action being taken reduces the challenge level by a certain amount. Actually, we're probably going to do it the other way around. We haven't actually decided on the math yet, so I'm doing a little bit of theorycraft when I say this, but we actually did discuss this a little bit on Friday at lunch, and we think it's probably more along the lines of the target difficulty doesn't change, but how much you can add to your role changes based on things like tags you might have, equipment you might be holding, your skill level,
skills,
your attribute levels. We don't want the math to be super complex though, so we're thinking it's more along the lines of fallbacks. If this bonus is greater than this bonus, use this, or something like that. I don't know. We're still talking about it.
But yeah, trying to streamline the math, which also ties into combat, which is another thing we talked about.
Yep.
And in a kind of a twofold way, we think we can both streamline combat, but also offer a wide variety of potential, character styles.
Can I
Yeah.
interrupt?
Just jump in.
We didn't want to take the huge network of potential that was stances and techniques and styles and just throw that away because it was super complicated. So instead we think we came up with a pretty good way to sort of preserve the dynamic of that system without necessarily having to dive into the sort of minutia that we were going to.
Right, exactly. Yeah, well put. And also I think it's a unique sort of IP marketing thing. I hate to be that guy, but I think it helps us to stand out in the market with our choice. And what that is so we had this idea that we could come up with cards that your player would have that are indicative of a stance. And so the card is your stance, shows your dude on the front so it'll look cool, standing in that stance, whatever it is. And the card's stance information on the back will show both the silhouette, which is what could be hit while you're in that stance by another person, and then as well what shots you can throw from that stance. And then that way you'll have your stance and I'll have mine, and we can put them both down and do quick comparisons. All right, I know I can shoot these attacks. These other attacks I can't do. And these are going to, you could quickly compare the maths to make your rolls. Do I hit? Do I not hit? Where do I hit? And then what kind of damage do I do? And that way it's stance plus weapon for your character. And certain stances can only be fought by people using certain weapons.
With particular skills,
et cetera.
And
right.
And
we can sell expansions that are just stances.
Yeah, combat styles would just be a collection of stances, and they could literally be on cards, like we were saying, right?
Right.
And just and just sell them as packs.
Can't use a maul in a spear stance. That would be fucking ridiculous.
Well,
Things like that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you technically
You
in
could,
some
but
cases.
yeah, really, I'm gonna stab you
Oh.
with my maul. It's really just gonna punch you in the stomach pretty hard.
Right,
And
really hard to
be
do
really
because it's
tip
so
heavy and
heavy,
hard.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna
It's
do
not what
my
you're gonna wanna
Molyneux
do.
right here, and then I'm gonna dislocate my shoulder because that thing
Fencing
makes
with an
my
axe.
pants.
Because inertia
It's
kicks
all.
my ass.
It's also a little tip heavy. It's hard to fence with an axe. I think.
Right, exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
I like that.
So the other thing that we talked about, and we've mentioned this a lot on the Discord, is that we kind of want the game to be, the parties to be comprised of multiple disciplines, right? So that it's, even though it's levelless, we want most of the adventures to be like, whoa, we're gonna need an archaeologist and a linguist. Oh, maybe we're gonna need a mage even, and definitely want somebody who can kick an ass because I can't. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so we want there to be a reason to have all of these various skills and for different people to pursue, for lack of a better word, different builds.
Well,
right?
yeah, and for that reason, I mean, not even for that reason. For that matter, we want there to be a reason to play something that isn't a fighter.
Right.
Right now, if I were to go jump into a modern, even Pathfinder or 4.0, or are we past 4.0 yet?
We're on 5e now.
Oh my God, D&D! Where you going, D&D? Anyway, if I were to jump into a party, in the modern systems I've sat and played, everyone has an attack option, and everyone's more or less balanced against the other guys at any level. So it's very MMO-y in a way, where it's like, well, how do you attack?
It absolutely is. In 4.E, the major problem was the fact that all of the characters were organized in controller, who were spellcasters who controlled the field.
Yeah.
Leaders who were
I
like
remember that.
These
defenders,
are
but
MMO
also
classifications.
tanks. And then it was supports who were things like thieves, healers who could tank or do some sort of
Yeah.
special skill,
I remember-
but also support the group that
I remember
was...
playing the original, hey, why don't you give 4E a try free
I
module
didn't-
that they put out?
Yeah.
And was like, oh, I'm going to play a warlock. Oh, a warlock is crowd control? What the fuck?
Yeah,
Wait a minute.
exactly.
Why are we even using the words crowd control in an RPG?
didn't-
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
I
Come
didn't
on,
like
you're
it
thinking about
because
this wrong.
I could, I could, like an MMO, use the feats and skills that were available to me. My favorite class in 4.0 is Ranger, and it's because I found a way to meta the Ranger to the point where I can use all my feats to gain the bow specialty that specialties I would gain by selecting a specialty, either two-handed weapon or bow Ranger, and also get all of the specialties of being a two-handed weapon fighter, which would throw any
I see.
balance of the
I see
Ranger
how you
out the
did it.
door, because
Yeah.
I could shoot everything I want and then also use all of my benefits as a two-handed weapon style Ranger to kick your ass, because that's the style Ranger I was. It was my class.
Yeah.
Like somebody play 3.0. But it's just, the point is,
We don't want that.
well, yeah, and
When you get right down to it, that's the opposite of what we want the game to be.
Yeah.
Right?
yeah, it's not even. It doesn't even make sense. I mean, if you're an antiquarian, old sage or guy or something, you're not gonna know how to turn a blade. It's not what you do. So there should be differentiation in characters that is like dramatic or real, or not everybody knows how to stab a fucker, and you might need this really smart guy to come with you and translate these ancient languages. And if he spent his whole life learning these ancient languages, he's not necessarily going to know how to fight.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's okay.
So
That's
that
in fact
actually-
good.
That actually segs into Zero's question, so let me read it and then
Yeah.
see how you want to answer it.
Yeah.
Zero asks, do you have any ideas as to how to tackle one of the issues non-combatants have in P&P games? Being that once combat starts, they tend to end up spending entire sessions sitting on their hands. Obviously, there are limits to try to make everyone happy, but it's always been a double-edged sword in P&P games. If you have players who don't take combat roles because it's very hard to keep them engaged once combat does not start. Exactly.
Yep, you're super cool. Yep, that's absolutely true.
So-
So I do have some ideas. That's actually part of why I think that combat should be streamlined, and why I'm so kind of adamant. If you ever end up playing a tabletop with me as your dungeon master, you'll find that some sessions have no combat, if you do have combat, it's usually resolved fairly quickly with a few turns.
Yeah, but usually
it's fast.
Don't bust out the map in figures, for example.
Yeah, unless it's like
unless I
something
needed to show
big.
how you're standing in the room or something like that. But usually we'll just draw that out because while combat should be, I think, pulse pounding and exciting, but it should also be fast. And it's not. I don't follow with the idea that you're going to spend an entire hour, a couple hours of a session meticulously fighting out a brawl with only 5 dudes or whatever. You can do that pretty fast and get back to the story, and that I think keeps the excitement level high because you're not dragging out a long combat into this thought out thing, right? And hey, having been in combats, it's not a thought out thing. It's not. It's very reactive, But also you can keep your non-combatants in there. Second, they can do stuff. Like they could run around. I had a character who was super weak spellcaster because I specifically will make characters that are non-combatant. And the guy was a weak cleric. He had no combative spells, but he had a dagger.
Exactly, like.
And when the fight started, he threw in because fuck yeah, you throw in. What are you gonna do? Cower in the corner? Sure, maybe, but
No, it's
put yourself in the position,
It's
right?
Daniel Jackson in Stargate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Jackson's a great one, or Milo from Atlantis.
Yeah, that's another great one.
Yeah.
Right?
Right?
Both of them start out as complete pussies, but sooner or later they But sooner or later they realize, that
You gotta throw in.
they have a stake in these fights, right?
Yep. Yeah, I had a cleric that had a pitchfork because he came from a farm.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a good game. Yeah.
See? And I got mocked. Why does he have a pitchfork?
I'm
I'm
like,
like,
call you pitchy.
yeah, exactly. Well, he has a pitchfork because this is his shepherd's crook.
Yeah. Except that when
It's
the time came for you to
stabby.
use it, you could kill a motherfucker
And,
dead.
right. If it gets down to it, man, I'm just going to stab you with my pitchfork.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty clever, actually.
Never
but
underestimate.
Every little bit helps. That's what I'm saying,
but
know?
those examples are actually important, too, because each of them, both Milo and Daniel Jackson, have a reason to be where they are when the fight breaks out. And that's the important part, right? If you cannot get the thing that you want without the non-combat role, that's better for everybody, right? Because you're going to need the combat role too, no matter what, right? And so everybody gets something cool and pivotal to do in the adventure.
Exactly.
And we think that's important.
Well, even protecting your weakling. Like, what if the goblins recognize that this character isn't carrying a weapon?
Right.
All right, well, that means he's a target, right? And so they go after him or her or whatever, What if one of your non-combatants is a child or someone you have to shepherd the whole way, and they just can't fight, and the bad guy recognizes that and so goes after that, and that's stereotypical of adventure television. As you go after
Absolutely.
the weakest person, you're gonna kidnap that person, and
Well, and I think Neuro makes a really good point too. He says, I'd actually like to see more campaigns where you're lightly armored or rarely armed, so that you have to use the environment and pick up lamps and face smashing and stuff.
you'd like playing with me,
Yeah,
man.
I think you would. Yeah.
And Phelan, same here. I
Yeah.
actually recently played a campaign where somebody did go the step farther with their roleplay and was like, no, I have a scythe because I'm a farm girl who always wanted to be a knight. And so I was like, the scythe looks like a pretty deadly weapon, and so they played along with the scythe. But honestly, if I was a farm person, I wouldn't have picked the scythe because the scythe is
They're
unwieldy.
unwieldy.
Yeah.
They're very unwieldy.
They eventually dropped the scythe for the sword too because it was a pain in the ass. Like they realized that in game quite quickly.
So my
agree,
go-to
Zero.
in response to Neurotoxin's comments about being poorly armed or underarmed or whatever, when I found myself faced with a group, a P&P group, that I either didn't know very well, or it was like, oh, we're gonna have Chris Dungeon Master, and they were all hardcores, and they were all like, yeah, I've been playing D&D since I was blah blah blah. I got my stuff here, I would usually have them get a blank character sheet, roll up their character, either 4d6 throw out one or 3d6 and put it somewhere, and you got to use them till they're full. Right, and then I would start them with minimum gear, usually just the clothes on their back, and sometimes a knife. Sometimes I'd make the joke and give them a rusty knife, because the joke is, if you have nothing, if you are rock bottom, then you have all of the reasons to adventure, all the reasons
Right.
to take risks and to do something exciting. Because if you're an established, swordsman and you have money and a villa, why would you go after a dragon really? Hey, I'm kind of set here. I got my shit. I'm not. Why don't you get someone desperate to do that?
I'm running a trade empire. I ain't got time for that shit.
Yeah, exactly. Dragons kill people. I thought you knew. You know? So, yeah, I was my stock starter because it gives you a reason to go make these ridiculous risks on your life.
So maybe this is a good point to segue into one of the other things that we decided, which was the tone of the adventures that we imagine that players of the pen and paper game are going to go through.
Absolutely.
Correct. Yeah.
So the Meow is way more about just life in this world, right? In fact, we honestly didn't want most people to be heroes. We wanted them to seek out adventure, but adventure takes a myriad forms, right? Like
exactly.
There's thousands and thousands of different ways that one can have an adventure. With the pen and paper game, though, given the way that people play these games and, in sessions and things like that, we felt like it was a lot more likely that they would be seeking out, like,
real adventure.
Classical
genre.
adventure, right?
Yeah, well, because are you going to sit down and play pen and paper Stardew with me? I'm just going to dungeon master your Stardew Valley experience.
Right.
Roll to harvest rutabaga.
And you may, but, the system will maybe even allow it, but that's not the kind of thing that we're really writing it for, is what we're saying.
Yeah, most people don't get together on game night to
and so instead it's
farm.
way more, strange horror or weird tales.
Correct.
It's way more encounters with the stuff
With
that is normally at the edges of Teleston, right?
Right.
The planes of existence, or the creatures that might come from them, or
Right.
the influence of the gods.
Right. It's a way more. I don't want to say exploration, but investigative. Sort
Right.
of like I envision most of the Telestonian pen and paper adventure campaigns to be explorations or investigations that begin with some piece of knowledge.
Right. So instead of like, the classical everybody gathers at the inn and adventure finds them, it would be more like you're approached by somebody who wants to mount an expedition to some strange place.
Correct.
Or you receive
a letter,
exactly.
You were in the library doing your studies and you uncovered a scrap of a map.
Right.
Yeah. Or even the ever so classic for Call of Cthulhu game, you're an investigator who's been contacted about a murder or stolen art.
Yeah, or maybe a kidnapping.
Call of Cthulhu is actually
absolutely.
a very good parallel because, again, any Call of Cthulhu pen and paper tabletop game usually is about investigation, exploration. It's usually not combat.
Yeah, we're not
combat tends to kill you
in any measure, but I do think that we do share that aspect.
At
least we
that
aspire
tone.
to.
Yeah, I was actually waiting for him to finish his description because exactly that. We're not Call of Cthulhu, and we shouldn't expect to be Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah, no, it's
we're
not
something different.
We're. I don't want. That sounds critical. I apologize. In my head, I was thinking.
I just don't want to compete with Chaosium, man.
No, exactly. But I also think that it's a different. We have a different opportunity.
Yes.
Right.
So, what makes that game cool is the setting of magic in the pseudo modern world.
When they're very
30s
gaslight, exactly.
Right. Like, and it's really cool, and I love that game. And I'm not saying anything
Lovecraft
bad
stuff
about
is
it at
that.
all when I say that. But we're more like Robert E. Howard.
Yes,
right? We're more
exactly.
like the Strange crossing swords with barbarians and adventurers and rogues and thieves and I think that there's a broad place that we can go with that nobody else has gone, and I think that's important. Like we definitely want to differentiate ourselves from other mythos inspired games.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Now I'm thinking about it, even Elric comes to mind as well.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's the same sort of fantasy. It's we say low fantasy, because it's like believable fantasy in a way, even though we have
we do have magic,
strange
and the
aeons and
the
magic and the gods and all that. It's got that ring of truth.
The ring of truth.
Ring of truth.
So Phelan actually asked something that I just don't want it to get forgotten about. She asked if you were able to wield meteor hammers, and that there was something more important to go on.
You can maybe find some star metal that fell from the sky.
And I thought she meant like the super big hammers, and I was gonna say
no buster swords.
That leads into what I've been basically doing for the past week, and that is organizing skills and primary attributes and giving a little blurb about them to help you guys know what those little skills and blurbs will do. And yes, heavy mauls and hammers are a type of weapon that you can definitely use.
What's the real? You'd have to show
The
me
real
the
life weapon is a two-handed hammer
Oh.
that has a fucking maul like that's this big.
Yeah, if it's a legit thing that exists and I've seen them, then
It's a lead ball
On
on
a
a thick
thick
cord.
cord.
Oh, okay. I didn't even realize. So that's
I can
a
imagine.
flail, and
That's
flails
kind
are
of like a
loose.
flail, yeah.
That'd be a great flail. And yeah,
I think we have that in there.
our system would allow you to model that, though I imagine that weapon would be really hard to use.
Slow
Absolutely.
and
It'd be like
devastating.
using a shot put as a weapon.
Yeah.
So, with all of this talk of setting and stuff, one of the things that we did, and here, let me switch to the screencast.
Absolutely legendary.
One of the things that we did was change our tagline. So, you may recall we were using the old tagline from the
Meow.
From the Meow.
That was
and-
Lovecraftian horror, which was a part of the original concept that we were sold. Like it was what we were given to work with, and we like Lovecraft and we like Lovecraftian stuff. But I kind of feel like, on the one hand, we can include everything awesome from Lovecraft. Love Hand.
Did you play for Love Hand?
I did
You
play
did,
for.
yeah.
See, that's where it's. Yeah, I played for Love Hand back in high school, but we can keep all of the awesome stuff from Lovecraft and all of the weird references and all of the Robert E. Howard flavor we want without using their names.
Right, and we've
And-
always kind of been our own thing anyway.
Right.
So,
So I kind of wanted to step away from the actual name Lovecraft or Howard, so as not to run afoul of A, Weird Tales, or B, Chaosium, but also to show that we are doing our own sort of thing. And yeah, it's super flavored by these, and it's very influenced, but it doesn't have to have that brand name on it.
yeah, that doesn't really change anything that we already know about the lore
Nothing.
in any way. Like, the
Not a
gods
damn
don't
thing.
change or anything like that. It's really more, we just want to distance ourselves a little bit from any specific sort of convention, despite what we're already using, you know?
Yeah.
Let's see. So, as long as I've got the site up, we can walk you through that really quick too. Definitely, things have been progressing. You know, the front page is now changed, so there's a section on features and a section on news. We have a lore section now. I mean, all of this stuff still needs a lot more content, but that'll come with time. Right. We're going to have sections for each of the various locations, and we even have some stories and stuff already up. In fact, this one being advertised right now is one you guys have never read. So you'll have that to look forward to when it actually goes live. Let's see. The tabletop role-playing system, I think, is still where we left it last week. I don't think we've added any new content. Nope, we haven't.
Not to the actual page that we've just talked about.
I have changed out a lot of the art using some of the old images that we've had from the old project. We did add an about section.
If it loads.
It'll load. And I think that's that you haven't seen. Wait, that should not be there. I'll fix that later.
What's this say?
Blackwell Isles. It's one of the sub lore pages. Is for some reason showing up in the main.
I see.
And of course the forums. Someday we're gonna want to skin this because
Yeah.
I can't stand the way PHPB
No.
looks.
This has looked the same for seriously 20 years.
Right, exactly. Let's see, what else did we add? That might be it.
Yep, I've been working on.
So you can see where our logo needs to go.
Yes.
Right there. So that's, you know, as far as art goes, that's probably our biggest concern right now is that we don't really have any form of like branding for this
Right.
IP at this point. I mean, I love the splash image here, and I actually really like the color palette that it lends to everything with the
Yeah, it's
greens
pretty.
and the blues. It's really pretty and also kind of otherworldly and sort of strange.
Yeah, I agree.
Which I think is important considering some of the direction changes that we've made. But we still need an actual logo because
Right.
text just ain't doing
Yeah,
Branding is a thing.
totally.
But that's it. Yeah, and down here you can see where I've been downloading and archiving images for our use all day.
Right.
So yeah, that's basically where we are on the website, where we are with the P&P guidelines.
So, well, as Verde said earlier, he's been actually working on content for the PNP. He's been writing out all the textual descriptions of, the major attributes, and I think you're hacking on skills now, which is a long list.
Yep. And we have some basic outlines for the 3 books.
Yep. I've got outlines for those, which is what he's working on filling in, and then I'm subbing out all sorts of bits from design documents for regions that were supposed to help drive aesthetic for the artists to when they eventually got to build, and now are providing more grounding for the website, for the lore pages on the website, and that sort of thing. And I'm hacking on that little stinger, it's sort of, what is Teleston, and working out what should go on the landing page versus what should go on the role-playing game page, etc. Content.
Yep, it's taken longer than we would have liked, but, we're 3 guys and we only get to work 2 days a week, so...
Well, and it's not the fun content. I can write stories much more quickly than I can write marketing blurb.
That's a fair cop for me, too. But we are hacking on it, and we are making progress every day.
Absolutely.
In the background, there's a couple of other things going on. So, for example, I mentioned in the last stream that we have a clock. We actually have a program that we can run that will tell you
what time it
is in SkyPass right now.
Yep. What time of year, what time of day.
Right. And because of the way I built that prototype originally, I wasn't allowed to distribute it under the old
contracts,
production contracts, but those contracts don't exist anymore. And so when I have some time, I'm going to brush it off again, and I'm going to put it up on the site, both as a thing on the site where you can just see what time it is.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Just download it for yourself if you wanted to. So that's just one of the things that's going to go up that's really easy for us to do.
Yep.
I have an Origin Matrix simulator, and I have an Origin Matrix editor. What I don't have is content for the actual Origin Matrix. However, once the website is done...
Right. Then I get to move on to real stuff.
Right. Omwa and I can probably populate that really quickly.
Hell yeah.
And as part of the P&P effort, work out a mapping between the results of the Origin Matrix and a finished, ready-to-play character.
Right, so we can spit characters out.
And dump characters out when you go through the Origin Matrix act. And so that's probably 3 or 4 weeks away, to be fair. But I think that's only 3 or 4 weeks away.
Right, and these are next steps. Also, I've seen some pretty killer hints at illustration about one of my stories.
I can't share them, but I have seen some amazing artwork.
Yeah,
pretty damn cool. So that'll slip in there somewhere.
So one last thing before we open it up for questions and stuff. One of the things that's been on my mind from the very beginning is how are we going to recognize the contributions and efforts of everyone on the team. So, for example, if you go to the About Us page, it's not just a promo for us here at Skyward. There's actually a section here where we talk about you guys and kind of the role that you've played so far and how kind of important you are to us. And so one of the things that I want to do is figure out a way to reward the people who actually contribute. And we may make nothing. I'm not even pretending like riches and fame await anyone who helps, right?
No riches.
But we're thinking we may try to run it. I don't even know if this is legal yet, but we're thinking that we may try to run it something like a pirate crew, where everybody who contributes gets a share in exchange for the right to use what they've contributed. And we don't know, if that's even legal. We don't know exactly what that even means or how many shares, say for example, Ilphonic would get in compensation for releasing the IP to us or anything like that at all. So I don't know what that really means, but I want you guys to know that we are thinking about this and that we are trying to figure out a way to make everybody's contributions matter.
Absolutely.
If we do figure out a way to make this happen, though, there are some things that I need to mention right at the get-go. Participation can't be flyby. You're either in it till the product you're contributing to is released, or you're not in it at all, right? If you contribute something and then bail 6 weeks later, I don't think that's cool, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to work through the whole project, but it does mean that you have to be there so that
Like, hang out.
the reckoning of whose shares are actually real happens when the project is released. You know what I'm saying? And that's just so that, you know, if you get bored and wander off with your stuff half done, you're not going to get rewarded for that. And I know that sounds really harsh, and I apologize, but the reality is that a lot of community-driven projects die that way. And so I want to make sure that doesn't happen with us.
Right. I mean, likewise, we don't want to force anybody to do anything. So
No,
you
it's
know,
all voluntary.
it's all volunteer. It's work on what you're passionate about and what you can work on, and that way, you know, hopefully you don't burn out and you don't, you know, go fuck those guys.
Yeah.
God, I've done all this great shit. And they
The
give me
point is
nothing,
for
you
it
know.
to be a
I don't-
good thing.
Yes, exactly. This is supposed to be a positive experience.
But I think I actually need to. I hate to say it. I think I actually need to talk to like a lawyer and figure out if that's not, like, for all I know, that's considered a con here in Colorado. Like, I literally
No
don't
idea.
know. But yeah, so on my own time, that's something that I'm pursuing right now as well. And maybe things will change drastically between now and when we actually make it happen. I don't know. But the basic plan is to make sure that everybody gets sort of recognized, and that maybe people who contribute significant portions might get more than one share or something like that. But the idea is that we would divide whatever was made into shares, and the people who had shares would then get some of that when it happened.
Something, somehow, some way.
Not stocking us so much as a share of the venture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, I think that's basically it for this week. Do you guys have any questions? And I realize we're pretty lagged, so maybe we'll talk about something for a second while. Hey, what's up, Annis?
Kitty.
That's my kitty.
Yeah.
Right there.
Meow. She wants attention.
Quite.
So Nero says something like fig, but not fig. Yeah. Something like fig, but not fig. I assume that's in reference to art stuff.
Right. Yeah, I'd really like to get a 3D model of, like, say, anime, and then, you know, bust out one of those.
Totally.
That'd be pretty sick.
Don't we have 3D
You know,
models
actually,
of
Zero,
the,
a lot of you are already... Oh, that's something we didn't talk about.
What's that?
I'm sorry, dude. I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, it's fine.
We didn't talk about the cards.
Oh, yeah. That's
Um,
actually pretty cool.
So, we've mentioned before that we absolutely have, you know, the card reading cards.
yeah. Oh, totally.
So we're going to start putting those together. And we might even publish the full list for you guys just to see.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm
But
going
if
to have to take a minute and finish out the inverts
Right.
for everything except for the rares. But while I know what they are, I have to, like, type them out again because last time they didn't save.
But a lot of founders are actually already recognized as cards
Right.
in the set, which is, I think, kind of cool.
Yeah, exactly. I've given a lot of founders cards, a handful anyway, and they're all somewhat cryptic names. So you'd have to look closely to figure out which was
Yep.
you.
Yep. There's a lot of
Is
in
that
references
me?
too. Yeah.
They're the ones I think I have the reader in the crewbot say something special like, "Oh, that's a rare card."
Yep, it
And
does.
they're also weighted to be 5 times less likely than the others.
Yeah, so that they are legitimately rare.
Yeah. Seriously, get some art.
You
for this
probably
card.
did.
Yeah, I've seen yours come up. I've seen Zeros come up too. Actually.
So have I. Yeah, I've
I've
seen
seen Sales. I've
Yep.
seen Diggs, and I've seen Rose.
Yeah.
I have seen Rose.
I'm pretty sure I've seen everyone I've written. And if, you haven't seen you yet, well, I'll get there eventually.
Keep watching.
Getting readings.
I think our knowledge, like even his knowledge too, though I don't know how extensive it is of the Rider-Waite deck and your Toth deck.
The Rider-Waite deck.
Yeah, sorry. That you and I could like make art in a Telestonian or Broggian fashion. And
Broggian
then-
woodcuts.
Yeah, and then get it commissioned for maybe some cards or something.
theoretically,
like
I
that
have-
we could sell.
I have been an artist in the past.
Well,
I just...
Yeah,
It's not-
I've met far
cheaper
greater
than
artists
books,
than
too,
me.
So doing a print run of the cards is relatively easy.
Yeah, well, and it's not unprecedented either. I
Might
noticed
give
as
them
I was
something to buy.
doing research that looks like our friends over at the D&D IP are likewise releasing a set of cards to go with their most recent Ravenlofty release.
Yeah.
The Return of Strahd.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's that. So yeah, we do have the
Strahd
cards.
on Rider Day.
But we should like sell tarot cards or playing cards or something like that.
Yep.
I'm on it,
Or
Paul.
both.
Yeah,
that is a thing I was thinking of doing, and yeah, I don't know about art. We'll see where the muse is in my brain.
Yeah, art's always a problem.
Art's
for us,
always hard.
We work in words, so
Yeah.
Well, and as I said, I was an artist right up until I met a lot of people who were way better artists than me. You know, I went to art school, and that's where I ran into a lot of people that were just like, "Oh, yeah, you're an artist. I'm an arty guy."
I like art.
I'm a dilettante.
Yeah, every once in a while, you might get the muse, throw something up in Photoshop, and go, "Hey, it looks cool, right?"
Yeah,
Not really.
I do game maps.
POS.
All right, cool. Any more questions?
Yeah, guys. What's up?
No.
No.
My die's like 75% done.
I'll take a moment to share something.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
these
yeah.
are cool.
Always
So-
like sharing stuff.
I recently received in the mail these bronze figures. So this one is Cthulhu.
Thank you, Legendary.
I'm not sure if
Thanks,
you can
man.
figure out who this one is.
I think it should have rough.
All the mouths,
You too, actually.
all the tongues,
And breasts around the bottom. It's very strange.
all
five
the
of 'em.
boobies.
Yep, 5 breasts too, which is weird.
One less than Anima.
Oh, and you know what? Yeah, it looks like cloven hoofs too.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes me think it must be Shednirov.
And then there's this one.
Could happen. Like
No idea what that is.
And they came with
Shoggoth.
a bunch of free extra figures as well that were just toss-ins from this person. And
You want to show him the Minotaur?
I am going to show them the Minotaur. So the first one I noticed that came out of the box was this, and I'm going to assume actually from what I'm covering up here that it's a satyr. Do you see this fine person here? Let me just take my thumb off of it. What is that about?
Oh my god.
oh, he's got a wanker.
It's a little nutsack.
Yep.
It's really weird. But hey, whatever.
Hey,
I appreciate my free figures.
any Minotaur worth his salt has a Tadger.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I should go large screen. Fair enough. Here's a deep one.
I like how he's holding a diving belt, like a hat.
Yeah,
Diving
like
helmet.
a diver's helmet.
Yeah. These have treats in them.
There's the satyr I was talking about.
We call him Chubby.
It's weird. He's a prick.
Ah!
Here's the Cthulhu, which I honestly think is my favorite from the set.
Yeah, he's great.
Cast bronze, too.
Yeah,
and like these are heavy.
weighty.
Mm-hmm.
Like these could be the murder weapon in a television procedural drama.
Mm-hmm.
Oopsie.
Yeah.
There's what we believe is Shednirov. With her weird breasts at the bottom and cloven hooves.
Cloven hooves.
They're very strange.
Absolutely not. Well, I also know how to cast.
Yeah, I can
pewter.
cast pewter.
I learned in my historical society. Yeah, it might be Shoggoth, maybe.
Oh,
Has a
maybe.
big ass mouth though.
Yeah, and only one. I think it might actually be.
It's not grand enough to be Azathoth.
No, I think it might actually be a creeping chaos.
Oh.
That's a Nyarlathotep.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
Maybe Shoggoth.
But if so, it's an odd rendition. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Zero. Just close the door.
All right. I guess that's it then.
Yeah,
Huh?
I think that's that for this week.
Cool. Well, we'll be back same time next week. And in the meantime,
We'll be in the chat.
we are all over the Discord. Let me see if I can post a link really quick.
If you can find me.
Maybe you can hire.
The 18. Where is that link?
Where's the link? Don't you generate it? Just generate a link.
Let me generate a new one. It's wasteful.
All those links, they pile up.
They do. It's a table in a database somewhere, man.
Yeah,
It's
man.
in the cloud.
A cloud is just someone else's computer.
But it's someone else's computer.
Not mine.
Let's see.
Okay, Paul. The page is up. We just haven't posted it live yet because we need to type in a bunch of words.
Oh yeah.
Type in words and put pictures and things.
No, I'm not wearing a mini kilt. It's the inside lining to this jacket that I've actually been modifying and sewing into it. No, I'm just wearing all green except for my orange shirt.
All right, here I'll just paste in.
Because it's Verde, man.
Whatever. So that's the link to our Telestin Development Discord.
Just totally click on it.
You should totally come join us if you're interested in
Play with us.
contributing, or if you just want to kind of see what we're doing day to day. It's where the community helps us out, and where basically we talk about what we're working on. So come see us.
And
Otherwise,
I'll see you
guys
next time
week.
I hit
Bye-bye.
stream.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming out.
I bet Rose would want to see that.